everyone, and welcome to the OnlyLandFans show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Peter Toth. Peter Toth started in the land business in 2017 after spending many years in corporate America. He took a land investing course over the summer, and by the fall, he was buying land. He just focused on the buying side at first to learn the ins and outs of getting deals. Once he started selling in 2018, he got off to a fast start by selling 10 properties in January and over 100 properties in the first full year. He has done over 100 transactions each year since then. He now runs a 7-figure land business and also likes to do JV partner deals with other investors to increase revenue for both parties. Peter, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Great. Thank you. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate you and everybody for being on the video here.
Absolutely. Well, we're so excited to have you. So thank you for joining us. Let's just jump right in. Tell us, how did you get started in doing land deals?
Yeah. So I was in corporate America. I was in sales, but nothing to do with real estate, but I always had an interest in it. And I don't know if anybody knows the name Ron LeGrand. He's a big house wholesale guy. He's done education for decades and decades. But I remember even my father, when I was probably just out of college, took me to a Ron LeGrand seminar, and it sounded great. But then at least for me, okay, what are the steps? Oh boy, you can buy this old house, but then you have to know how to be a contractor or work with contractors or whatever it is. It just seemed overwhelming, the amount of things you had to do and the amount of pitfalls. And the reason I mention that is, so many years later, when I finally found land after looking at houses, apartments, mobile home parks, and all these other things that I never could really jump into because I thought there were too many gotchas. When I found land, I was like, well, I don't see the problem. What could it be? And just kept exploring it. I'm like, it sounds good and it's really worth taking a course and really worth, trying to do something. In the background of all that, I had done well in corporate America, did a number of different companies, moved around, and that's what happens a lot of times in corporate America. My company that I was with had new management, and I kind of thought, you never know what's going to happen, and I better have a plan B. And I hadn't really had one until then. So that summer, before I jumped in the land business, I took a land course, found somebody on a message board that knew what they were doing. He sort of became my mentor. Very helpful to do that, because otherwise it's like, well, you see something on the internet, you don't know how much to believe, and you don't know the actual process of doing. So I started thinking, okay, I'm going to start buying properties. Well, as it turns out, and this is almost the 6-year anniversary, September 6th of 2017, I get a call. My manager's on the line. Hey, Peter, I've got HR and they want to talk to you. And I knew that was it. And it was it, but okay, we're downsizing. What do I do? And I didn't even have the thought at that point, because I knew it's like, all right, I could go get another corporate job, but is that really going to make me happy? Because I had this entrepreneurial itch and thought, and I wanted to do something, and I knew it was going to be land. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to dive into land. And that's what I did. And my thought about just learning how to buy, even though I had sold for years and I felt I'd be good at selling, and I felt like that was my comfort zone, I was like, all right, unless I get a whole bunch of properties, it's not going to go anywhere. And I started buying desert squares, Arizona, 40 acres, buy for 5,000, buy for 8,000. It's a little more expensive now, definitely. But the point is, just kind of jumped in, picked a market and just went with sending letters, and it was working. I was self-closing and getting properties. And I didn't want to start selling. And that was September, probably started buying properties October, November. November rolls around. I'm like, okay, it's the holidays, probably not the optimal time to start selling. But in January, I said, all right, I'm going to do this. I was doing my own Facebook ads, putting together the pictures, doing everything that everybody has to do when they start. And I had enough properties where I posted them all over the place, listed them. I was fortunate enough to sell 10 properties my first month of selling. And I was very happy about that, because you just don't know. Anybody who's on the newer side, you just don't know. When you mail a new market, you just don't know.
Absolutely.
But it works if you really think about what you're going to do. If you're sending blind offers, which is what I did, and blind offers is what I did for really up until this year. Where now I'm starting to send neutral markets to some markets that are larger properties that are a bit harder to price with blind offers. I can get to that. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but yeah. And anybody knew where the first few mailers will not blow your socks off, most likely, will not be stunning successes, most likely. But it doesn't matter. As long as you keep picking new markets until you find an area you like, a niche, something where people are calling you. You know, if you send out 1,000 offers, you don't need 100 calls. You just need, it'd be great to get a dozen calls, and half of those, people that you may buy a property. And it turns out you may decide you don't want the property because it doesn't fit your criteria. It's not a good enough property. And that's also one of the things I want to mention is, you are the beauty queen. You are the one who gets to decide if you want this, just because somebody wants to sell you a property. If it's going to be hard to sell, and I define hard to sell as bad access, flood zone, wetlands, what's around it, are there homes around it? If you're trying to sell a residential property and you look on the satellite and you don't see anybody in a several mile radius, well, something's up with that area. It's either just an area people don't like, maybe the roads aren't good, maybe everything will look good in the satellite. You'll see a road, everything will look great. But then if you inspect it or send somebody to inspect it, which is in my book, a must, does it have power on the road? So there are roads, but you would think it's got power, but it definitely needs to be on the checklist. Does it have power to it? That's a big factor. So all these little things, but yeah, when starting, just important to keep consistent mailing. That's the biggest thing I can add of value when you're first starting. And then of course you can learn more, get fancier, all these different things. But yeah, consistency would be the main thing for the first year of mailing.
That is fantastic. So many great nuggets in there. I think one of the things that I think that so many entrepreneurs are familiar with is that dreaded, if you work for corporate America, you could be cut at any time, right? And, I think that I know that at least for me, whenever I had a full-time W-2 job, it feels as if like, okay, that's job security. A lot of people feel that way, like I'm going to get a check no matter what. But in actuality, like you mentioned, you can get cut at any time. So having this opportunity, this, I would call it a side hustle, call it an entrepreneurial adventure or whatever it is, really helps to kind of put you in the driver's seat, right?
Absolutely. And if you're newer or you've been doing this a while, just, my 2 cents is, if you just want to focus on the acquisitions, that's something you can do more on your schedule. If you want to go through spreadsheets Saturday morning at 3 a.m., you can do that. That's a little different than the sales side, where it's more of a daytime activity, taking phone calls, that sort of thing. But if you wanted to make this just a part-time gig and grow it until you're ready to make a step, into the business full time, I think you can do that. If you found a good property, I would help you sell it, or somebody would help you sell it, and an agent would help you sell it. If you found a property that was $100,000 to buy and you don't have $100,000 and the property's worth $200,000, I would help you fund it. Kendall would help you fund it. A lot of people would help you fund it. There's, don't think too small is something else I would add, because in this business there's a lot of helpful people. That if you stick around, you'll, get to know, and, whether it's on, message boards or at conferences and such, it really is impressive, the people in the business that I've met, and a lot of people are willing to help.
Absolutely. That's one of the beautiful things, in my opinion, about the land industry is that it is so collaborative and it can really be a team effort, right? And so if there's something that that you can do, but you're not sure if you can do all of the other pieces, there are plenty of other people out there that are willing to join the team to do those pieces for you. So I want to go back to your sort of genesis into the land industry. You mentioned about taking some courses. Which courses did you take when you first started?
I took the Land Academy course, and I think it's great. I know, there's so many courses now. It seems like everybody wants to be a land educator. And I'd given it some thought, but I'm like, it seems like, there's a lot of land education companies. And now on YouTube, there's so many good videos, how to pick a list, how to pick a county, what should you do? There's even some courses that are free out there that are great. Seth Williams has a course, EB Farmer's got a course, a lot of good courses. One thing I will say, when I first started, I just wanted to know everything I could. And I was listening to podcasts many times a day, watching whatever was on YouTube, doing whatever, just trying to get every little nugget. I think it really helped. I think if you can, from one podcast, if you can get one idea, maybe how to mail a little differently, how to segment something, how to deal with a certain situation. And for me, I gave up doing self closes a long time ago. And I just thought it was something that there's too much room for error. And hey, it's $800, it's $1,000, depending on where you are, it might be $2,000. But, the other part of that is, I think you also have to do deals big enough where if you buy it and sell it, it should be a big enough win that the title cost should not be a factor. One little mess up on the deed, is it, the Northeast? Is it the Southwest? Is it something else? Or, does the person in the chain of title, is it actually the same exact name, or is it a name that just seems the same? All things that are fraught with error, with challenges. So to have a professional do it and not worry about it and outsource it, I think is, a great idea.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you there. There's just so much room for error, especially if you're not very well versed in what needs to happen in a self-close. If you're just starting out, I always suggest go to a title company. Like, there are professionals that will help you to do that type of work. So you mentioned when you first got started that you were doing some desert squares, you were doing those self-closings. What types of properties do you specialize in now?
Yeah. So since then, I've done a lot of different things. I sort of moved my focus to the Sunbelt states. I'm in Florida, so I've done a lot in Florida. And, so buy for 10,000, sell for 20,000, buy for 20, sell for 40. And I've done a lot of those deals. And I sat back and I thought about, okay, how do I want to grow my business? I don't, doing 100 deals, that's a decent amount of deals, I guess. It's all relative with a small team. I mean, if you have a bigger team, it's not. But then it's like, all right, how do I want to grow? And the answer for me is by doing larger deals. So instead of buying for 10,000, sell for 20,000, it might be buy for 100,000, try and sell for 180, 190, 200. It might be buy for 250, split it. If you've got, make up an example, 40 acres, you can make 4 10-acre parcels in a lot of places, a lot of counties. Depends on the rules. So you got to know the rules. Some counties have no rules, others have a lot of rules. So you got to know, is the property a rural property? Is it in a city that has their own specific rules? Yeah, you better know this. But by doing that, you can often buy the 40 acres at a lower price per acre than the 10 acres, or maybe you can even make 5 acres. But an old wise land guy once told me it's like sort of like what a bar does. They buy it by the bottle and sell it by the shot. And they do that for a reason, because if you look at the price of a shot versus the price of a bottle, it's going to be a lot more based on the size. So with the splitting, that is my favorite deal these days, because you can create value. I've even now bought properties from the MLS. So, how many letters does it take to get a property? Well, if you're buying from the MLS, none. Same thing. Now, how many tax? None. But you got to really know what you're going to do with it, know the pricing, know your disposition strategy. It can be done, but you really got to know those things and be comfortable with it. And then be comfortable paying cash for a property, because if you're going to have a dogfight, other people are going to see it in the MLS. When you're sending, offers to people that are with off-market properties, yeah, there's competition, but maybe you'll hit somebody at a time when they're not getting other, hits from anybody else. And so you might be the only one at the moment negotiating with that person. Don't assume that always, because now there's more competition than ever. Still, you got to go forward and do it. But my point is, on the MLS, yeah, you're going to have more competition. So I'll give you an example. I'm buying 100 acres. It was on the MLS. I saw it pop up and just come on the market. And what I look for when I think about splitting a property, which is the most important thing, is road frontage. How much road frontage is there? Because that's based on the frontage, that's how many parcels you can make. You got to have it wide enough so that each parcel is not skinny, it's not a weird shape, it's not anything but a nice looking regular parcel. And the more the properties look good or at least average, the easier they are to sell. When you have something below average, that's a different story. And I think those are difficult. And I've done my share of difficult properties, so now I like the easy properties. But on this property that's 100 acres, I'm going to make 10-acre parcels. They're going to be 300 and some odd feet wide, so that's plenty wide enough. They're going to, the property's a good depth, and so everything's going to be, pretty much. I think it's going to be a good situation. I'd mentioned before we started this that I've got a new website, teamlanddeals.com, Team Land Deals. And there we've got some samples of split deals that we've done. I've got a partner that's been doing this, maybe longer than everybody on the podcast together. If you multiply the years in the business or add the years in the business, he's been doing a lot. So I've just learned a ton, and he's actually learning all the time too, quite honestly. So even after that many years in the business, always check your work, have somebody else check it if you're not sure. But the point is, if you can do the splits and learn to add some of those to whatever you're doing today, it could really be a nice benefit, a nice bonus. There's a lot more talk about splitting properties now. I always listen to a lot of still and podcast videos. There's more talk now than I've ever heard, but for a good reason. It's a great way to get properties. And so in this situation, I'm going to get one property, but really it's probably going to be 10 properties. Maybe somebody will want to buy two at once. Okay, fine, no big deal. But yeah. So from that one property, I mean, that could be a good month there just by itself. I'm not going to stop there, but to add it to other things that are going on, is great. And I also want to mention, because there's different kinds of splits and different kinds of entitlements. Some people talk about that. There are some people that focus on buying a property and carving it up into quarter-acre lots or half-acre lots and getting, utilities on there and water and everything and going through and getting county approvals, board meetings. You're going to sell it to Hovnanian. You're going to sell it to Toll Brothers. That's not the kind of splitting I'm talking about. I'm talking about rural splitting. That's a simple type of activity that, again, you got to know the rules, but often you can make a certain number of splits without specific county approval, where you can just, okay, these are the regulations. You can make 4 splits here. You can make maybe it's only 2. Maybe you can just cut something in half. Still worthwhile often. But yeah, so it's a much simpler, mini split, mini division, if you want to call it that. And that's what I'm talking about. And the difference is, when I look at it, I'd prefer not to build roads. I'd prefer not to put in infrastructure. I'd prefer have a surveyor go in there, survey it out, carve it up, get approval if required, or sometimes just submitting a document, and be ready to sell almost as soon as you bought it. And so in some of these, we've been in and out in 3 months, 4 months, even after doing a split. It's simple in my book is better. I'd rather do several simple ones than one that's going to take a year and have some sleepless nights. Hey, I thought we'd be good, but some county person decided they don't want more growth in that area. They decided whatever they decided is not what I would want to have happen. So yeah, it's just something to be careful about.
Yeah, those are absolutely fantastic points. Subdividing out on paper can go so much faster than actually, like you said, trying to get the infrastructure in and getting all of the permits and the licenses that you need to do that. Sometimes those projects can take a year or more, so definitely understand what you're talking about in terms of getting those faster subdivides done. So, am I assuming correctly that when you started and you were doing these buy for 10, sell for 20, that these were infill lots?
Not necessarily. Going back 5-6 years ago, land prices were a lot lower than they are today. So some of those were 5-acre parcels buying for 10. So, and this is even in Florida, and you can't get those now. or if you get those, they're going to be swamp if you're paying 10 or 20,000 for that. But so hindsight's 2020. If I knew the market was going to do what it was going to do, I would have held on to some of those, made more of a profit. But I'm a flipper. I like turnover of capital. So, putting on the banker's hat, like, hey, the faster the capital turns over, the more profit there is, the more you can use your own money to kind of, keep the machine going. So that's what I like to do. Now, that said, I've got a lot of terms notes from selling on terms because, a lot of times selling on terms is faster. But, what are the variables? Well, how good is your marketing? How many places are you going to list? Are you going to spend the money for, land.com or other online platforms? Are you going to pay an agent? What are you going to do for your disposition strategy? Mine was to sell it myself, post all these places because I had a sales background and I didn't mind taking calls, and I still don't. That's still my, I guess the main thing, what is your main thing that you are providing value in the business? And I think that's mine. But so I've got a lot of notes, and I'm happy to sell, in terms if it gets it sold. And I like to get the money back in about a year if possible. So then anything after that, now the rest coming in is just, pure profit. It doesn't always work out, but I'm in a fortunate position. I've sold enough in cash that, I have extra capital, and, maybe shame on me for not having that always at work, but that's also the nature of the business. If you're going to be selective about what you buy, you're going to have some money sitting around if you're operating that way.
So. Excellent. So looking at the full body of deals that you do in a year, what would you say the percentage are of deals that are just straight flips to subdivides to creating notes? What would you rough estimate?
Yeah. So the notes just will kind of happen organically. These days, if you ask me what my preference is, it would be sell for cash, take the money, put it into bigger deals. And where before, I mentioned buy for 10, sell for 20. Now I really want to focus on 6-figure deals. Doesn't mean, if a deal comes in and, hey, it's 75 acres that I can buy for 80,000, doesn't mean I kick it to the side if it's a good deal. It just means that, hey, more of my deals that I market to are going to be the larger ones, because I'd rather not try and hunt down 10 new properties that are individual properties a month, because that does get harder. And then to grow that into 15 or 20, you do start needing a team at some point. And now you're responsible for that team and make sure everything's good. But I'd rather find fewer larger properties, and larger again is relative, but that when they sell, that they can move the needle. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. And I mentioned 75 acres, and I've got one now that I completed the purchase a week ago, put it in the market, and we've got a good offer that we'll wind up taking. So that's going to be a double in a week. And this is a pretty rural property. So I thought, okay, this one might sit a bit, but just right property, right time. So I guess that's the other thing I can say is, if you got a property, it's not going to sell if you don't have it in the market. So, we were going to look into things like selling the timber, which is possible on a big property. Look into things like, okay, what are the real values of the minerals? In some areas, minerals have value and some they don't. But at the end of the day, I'm a land guy. And if I can turn the money, I'll do that. And, then now I've got to look for more properties, which is a good problem to have, to put that money back and turn it again. So, for me, it's a combination of the larger properties, and also if I can find a few that are splits. If I found one a month, great. 2 a month, that'd be fantastic, because again, these split properties turn into more when you split them. They don't all turn into 10 parcels. Some will turn into 2 or 3 parcels, depending on rules and shape and other factors, but they're still good to have. And, like, I guess a number of other folks in the business, and I know Kendall yourself also, I also like to do JV, partnerships in those. And so what's the expression? Rather have, part of a watermelon than a whole grape,
right?
Something like that.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
yeah.
That's fantastic. So For these larger deals, it sounds like obviously you're taking cash from some of the smaller deals to put into these larger deals, but have you ever raised money to take down one of these larger deals, or has it all been self-funded?
So on some selective deals, bank financing. So, maybe 15, 20% down. So there's a property that we recently did that was $340,000, I think. So 20% down, ballpark, 70,000, 75,000 out of pocket, but the rest a bank note. And then as we sell them off, the bank isn't going to just leave the money there. They're going to want, if you sell one parcel of that, they're going to want that percentage of the mortgage back and paid off. So you've got to do that. But if you know that going in, it's fine. And if you can leverage the money, so I've got a few that are out on bank loans, but we've also had some where we sold 3 out of 4 or 5 parcels right away, paid the bank back, and then we were okay kind of looking out for higher prices on the remaining parcels, because now we've got no money into it. We don't have our money into it. We don't have the bank's money into it. It's just kind of free land after a certain point. And so, yeah. So if you can do that, that's also a good thing. So the larger ones, yeah, I think banks do play a role, in those.
Excellent. So if someone's listening to this and they say, well, I've never even thought about using a bank for financing, can you walk us through the process of, in general, what that process is like borrowing money from a bank? What types of criteria do they look for? Is it based on the land value? How do you show land value and your projections? Just overall, in general, the process.
Yeah. So they're going to want to look at things that people kind of make assumptions when you go for a bank loan for a house. They're going to want to look at, some things that are similar. What's your income? What are your expenses? Debts, how stable has your income been? And, fortunately for me in the land business, it's been going up every year, and it's at a level where, yeah, if I had to get a decent sized bank loan, I could do that. And so they're going to look for things like that, good credit score. There's a lot of farm credit banks. And the farm credit banks will lend on larger land. If somebody finds something real specific, I'll give you an example: 3 acres on the water in an expensive beach town, and that 3-acre property is $500,000. They're probably not going to lend. That kind of bank probably is not going to lend on that. They'd rather lend on 30 acres, 40 acres, 80 acres out in the country somewhere, thousands of acres. And as a farm credit bank, they do a lot of agricultural lending as well. Hence the name farm. So those kinds of banks often are good when you think about land. Banks like, the big brand name banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, Citi, et cetera, they don't like land. So, if you're not going to go to one of the farm credit banks, then maybe a local credit union, local bank in the area would be, a bank that I'd suggest. Or, if you're just not there yet and comfortable with it, yeah, myself and others will also help with the funding if you come across something. And then, the thought, I have there that, like, for me, like, I sort of grew it organically, but if I had it to do over again, even though every year, my income is going up, I would have started the bigger parcels sooner and gotten funding partners, and to not only fund large deals, but also help actually show me how to do it and show me that, create that comfort zone. The first time I said, okay, I'm going to buy a property for $100,000. Yeah, that seemed like a big number. And now, yeah, it's still a big number, but it's not nearly as big as before. And now if somebody came along and there's, a 7-figure property, hey, I'll give it a strong look. And if I don't want to put my own money into it or all my own money, you know what? I'm going to go find a funding partner. That's, the team approach sometimes is a good approach, hence the name Team Land Deals. So yeah. And those deals are out there. Think of, for those who have been doing this a while, where have the properties come from? Somebody inherits a property. They moved out of state. They were going to do something with it. They got older. They're not going to do anything with it anymore. They want to sell. They don't want hassle. it's the same thing on larger deals. Yeah, there might be family members involved. Yeah, they might look at it differently because now it's a major asset. But you know what? If you can give them a fair deal and you have a good strategy for what you're going to do with it, and you feel comfortable that you've done your research and know it's going to sell, then, yeah, see if you can make something work.
Excellent. So if someone's listening to this and saying, you know what, I think I want to go after a big deal. I think that I can do this with a team. I'm really looking to JV, and they've never done it before. What advice would you have for someone that's looking to JV their first deal? Who do they look for? Where can they find them? What type of person do they need to look for? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, there's people that, kind of, have names in the business that, if you're looking at certain message boards, but, I'll look at a lot of things, if you want to go on the Team Land Deals website and submit a property. I know in Texas, in certain counties, I know that you've had good success with that. And, so there are others, but yeah, I'd say if it's way outside of your comfort zone and you haven't done it, don't stop what you're doing today. Don't stop your plan, but just add to it. Add a little bit of the larger properties. If you're cutting your list, and if you're pulling a list and you're stopping at 40 acres, maybe go up a couple levels. And if you were going to go up to 80 acres, hey, maybe you listen to this and maybe you go up to a couple hundred acres, and you just never know. And why do people respond to any kind of marketing to sell their property? Because they're ready, and right time, right message, and if somebody calls you, call them back. I keep having these conversations with other land investors that, prospects and landowners get marketing. They call people that have sent letters and they don't hear back from them. So if you want to get properties, if you're not going to call them back, have somebody call them back.
Hey, land fans, looking for your tribe of serious land investors? Join thousands of your fellow land lovers in the OnlyLandFans Facebook group. We're talking real deals, expert strategies, and game-changing connections you won't find anywhere else. This isn't just another real estate group. This is the community where land investors come to level up. Join us at OnlyLandFansGroup.com and join the conversation today. That's OnlyLandFansGroup.com. See you there. Absolutely. No, that's fantastic advice. A lot of people have been talking in the real estate space about the market shift and the market shift and the market shift. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Where do you see the market going now, and what are you going to do to thrive in the upcoming market?
Great question. So I've been waiting for the next recession for a while now, and being cautious about what I buy. I've been telling people, hey, I want to buy the higher quality properties. If you're looking at a scale of 1 to 10, I want a property that's at least a 7. I don't want an average property. I don't want a property with flaws. The nicer properties are easier to sell. I believe that's a fact. And sometimes you even got to make them even nicer than they are. What does that mean? A little bit of land clearing, sometimes bulldozer work, sometimes forestry mulching, sometimes something else. But that aside, so even though sometimes the summer is slower and the economy is a question mark, and I can't help but feel it's a question mark, I've had some of the best months ever. I mean, I had a 7-figure sales month, followed by a $900,000 sales month, followed by selling things just very quickly that I thought might hang out there a while. So I think if you have good properties and your marketing is good, and what do I mean by good marketing? Killer pictures that are on a sunny day, bright, they've been edited right. They're in a good marketing package, video. I've got a selling website, petersellsland.com. Anybody can go on there and kind of see the kind of marketing that I mean, that somebody can look at it and feel like they know enough about the property, where instead of going fishing with the guys, going, to party with the girls, going wherever, they're going to go and look at a piece of land and change their plans to do it. That's really the goal that I would want them. Hey, they weren't sure, but this one they want to go check out. And I just, had a thought from way back the first month I started. Of course, I was very curious. why did you pick this property and why did you call me? And I thought their answer was very educational for me. It was great. The person said, well, we saw it on Facebook, and then we saw it on land.com, and then we saw it somewhere else. We said, this property is going to sell. We should call this guy. And I'm like, okay, that's it. You got to post it in multiple places, and you got to be all over the place as much as you can. And I wasn't even an internet person at the time with the marketing that I've learned just by being in the business. But yeah. And again, if you're not going to do it yourself, if you don't have the time to do it, work with somebody that does like that stuff, or get a virtual assistant, or there's plenty of people that are great at the marketing side if that's not your skill set. Because I think we've all seen properties on the MLS where it's random trees, and that's the first picture of random trees. Hey, are those random trees in Florida? Are they in Arkansas? Are they in North Carolina? They're the same tree. It's pine, but why do they do that? Because I don't know. I don't know why they do it, but it leaves room for investors like us that can do something with the marketing, that can do a better job of it. So I don't think the marketing can be at a high enough level to say it's overdone.
Yeah, that's really, really excellent advice. I think that, really thinking about the customer journey on the dispo side is so important, because then that, like you said, it creates this, it creates demand for a property, especially when they see, the property in many other places. It creates this buzz about it, right? That's marketing 101. So I think that that's really fantastic advice. Going into some nuts and bolts now, how do you pick a target area to find your deals?
I think I'm going to say some of the same things that others have said before me is you've got to, when you pick something, okay, there's got to be population to sell to. So it can't be in the middle of nowhere. And that's why I don't do the desert squares anymore. I like properties for the most part that somebody's going to look at as, I want to put a home on this property. Now, everybody's definition of that's different. Some people want to be half an hour outside the city. Other people want to be an hour, 2 hours. But so for me, if it's an hour or a couple hours outside, that's usually okay. I don't want to go too much beyond that. However, a property I got recently, it was kind of remote-ish. There were people living around it, but it was more of a, hey, is this a timber property or a hunting property instead of a residential property? And it's probably going to be a timber hunting property. And I do plan to add more of those to the mix if you get it at the right price. And if you're getting it at a price where you can sell it below where everybody else is. So if the going price is $4,000 an acre and you can get it for $2,000 an acre, and you can sell it for, make up a number, $3,700 an acre, that's fine, as long as your property is the same or better than those other properties at that same level. So the bigger properties get priced on a price per acre basis. They can, if they're hunting properties or timber properties, take longer. So that's why most of what I've done is residential, but I'm going to add those in, because that's also a big part of the market. And you look at the guys like, if you've been on LandWatch and seen the whitetail agents, they just do a ton of that. So I think you got to know the market, though. Do the research. Hey, are properties selling? Who's buying what? That sort of thing. And on those properties, let's say you do get an 80-acre property. Again, is it on a road? Can it be 240s? Can it be 420s? That'd be my first thought always. But this one just sold, the one I just mentioned before. Yeah, just sold to 75 acres just right away, just easy, done. So, yeah.
Excellent. Very good. And you mentioned mail for your acquisitions marketing. You also mentioned MLS. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the funnel looks like for you when you are marketing to find deals?
I like direct mail. I know a lot of people have moved to, SMS, doing some other types of acquisition strategy. And I think that's fine. For me, I've had success with letters, and I know that if I send more letters, I'll get more deals. And, then it's just a question of, all right, what kind? The majority, say 95% of anything I've ever bought has been from a blind offer. Now, this year I started to say, okay, I want to do some other types of marketing. And I decided to add neutral letters to what I've done because some counties are hard to price. And it's like, all right, maybe a defined price isn't going to work. Let me see what happens if I just send neutrals. And so I've got several different deals recently from neutral letters that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. But there again, you got to sort of know enough about the business to figure out where you can buy it, what price you're going to offer. It's got to be your price. Sometimes if you're not offering a low enough number, a number that you're almost embarrassed to offer, you've offered too high. And so you got to know that number. And if you don't know it, that's okay. There are professionals that do, or people that might. Like in certain areas that I've sold in before, I think I do a really good job of knowing that number. But if somebody brings me a deal in Arkansas where I haven't sold property, maybe I'll know it, maybe I won't. But there's always an agent that knows the area. Now the trick is getting the agent to call you back if they just think you're using them for price checking. So you got to be careful about that. You got to really let them know that, hey, if you buy a property, you're going to need somebody to sell it, and you use them if they are good. And some agents are, and some agents are not. So for me, it's mail and a combination of different kinds of letters. But different things work for everybody. I know people that don't send any mail at all, and it's all done by text. And if they can make it work, more power to them.
It works if you work it, right? So
if you learn it, and if it's your comfort zone, and if either you or somebody on your team is, learns to be good at it, you gotta learn to be good at it. So whatever I say is, you got to sort of have some level of, try and figure it out, try and like it, or hire somebody who's going to do it. If you've ever heard the expression "who, not how," it's Dan Sullivan, business coach. Excellent book. If people have not read that, I came across it this year. Who, not how. Wealth of information.
Absolutely. Yeah, really good. And so to send these blind offers, for someone that may not be familiar with an area, outside of working with an agent, how would you suggest that they go about figuring out what they need to put in their blind offers, and how do you do that at scale?
Listen up, land fans. This is huge. We're bringing you the one and only Pace Morby, star of A&E's Triple Digit Flip and the mastermind behind $450 million in real estate deals. He's coming to our virtual meetup on Thursday, December 5th to share how he's applying his creative financing genius to land deals. Head to olfmeetup.com to save your spot today. That's olfmeetup.com. This is the kind of opportunity that changes everything.
Yeah. So because I believe there's more people in the business than ever before, and there's a lot of house wholesalers who've moved to land, and there's more letters going out. It used to be you could take a letter, just, somebody had done a course and they put a letter out there, and you can grab that letter and send the same thing. I believe now that the more you can do to customize it, the better off you'll be to separate yourself from what other people are doing. So on the properties I have that have in terms, I get letters. So many of them are boilerplate. So many of them are bad offers. And by bad, I mean way too low. Like they heard a course and the course said, oh yeah, offer 25% of the market value. Well, maybe in the desert that worked 5 years ago, probably is not working today. I don't think 25% is the right number. I think you've got to offer a higher percentage. So I like to get to know an area, and I don't mind offering, just a higher percentage, but I don't want to tell everybody to do that because that might not be for them. And you've got to know and be comfortable in your selling. Like I know, like we're going to bring a lot to bear on the marketing and selling side. And if it's a big property, it's going to be video, and it's going to be multiple channels and a number of different things. If you're not quite there yet, either work with somebody who is, or figure out, don't over offer just because I'm telling you that I like to offer on the higher side. There's that part of it. And then it's like, okay, what's going to get somebody to call you? Is it, if you use the same boilerplate, they're going to think you're, I've had people say, why do you keep sending me letters? I haven't sent letters there before, but the letters were too similar to what other people did. So now if you can maybe do something in color, add your picture, add a little story, Why do you want their property? What do you, and how do you treat people? Tell me about yourself. Are you, in the military? Are you something else that somebody's going to resonate with for that target market? And the more, I think, the more personalization you can add, the better off you'll be.
Excellent. And so how many mail pieces are you sending out a month now?
It's a great question. It's random because I'm focusing on the sales. If I have a good sales month, it takes away from the time that, I'm sitting in front of the computer figuring out, lists and mailing. And so I've been fortunate because things have just been rolling along, but I'm more inconsistent than I want to be. So that's the next who in my business is an acquisitions person, just to focus on acquisitions and get some of those metrics around the numbers and, trying to put that more into a system. So some months might be 5,000, some more, so some might be less, but it's been working. And that combination with looking for some things on the MLS and with having some partners and JV deals that are bringing deals, I've been busy all year and sales have been great. And so for me, that seems to be working. I think it'll work better when I have a full-time person managing that. But yeah, so far it's been working.
Excellent. And so do you have a process built around how you look for properties that are listed on the MLS, or do you just kind of go through and see something that sticks out and make an offer? Or talk to us about that process.
As I mentioned before, it's road access is the main thing, and having a good road, and then also being careful about flood zone and wetland. So if a property pops up and it's the right acreage above a certain number, and I look to see if there's roads in the listing. If there's no roads in the listing, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time trying to make something work. Most agents that have, a good sense about what they should be, talking about for a property or promoting, they'll put the road in there. And so if I see a rectangle that's long on the road or something that's at least square, and then I see, most listings now, if you go to LandWatch, for example, or some other sites, they'll pull up the land ID map, and then you can kind of see what the shape is real quick. You can see the road frontage. You can see, do they have a layer available for flood zone? So if everything looks good and, it turns out it's 3/4 flood zone, most areas that's not going to work. Some areas it could. Some areas don't care about flood zone because that's just the way it is. But for me, I'll move along. I'll look for a property with very minimal wetlands, flood zone, long on the road, whether it's, if it could be a rectangle, great. If it could be road on two sides, hey, that's fantastic. If it could be a corner, even better. But, that's rare, that those beautiful corner properties with all this road frontage all the way around. It happens, but everybody's going to look at those when they see them. If you're going to find something in the MLS, it's hard to find a property that's been sitting around and nobody's bought. Usually the ones that sit around either are overpriced or there's some flaws to them. So it's usually got to be a quicker process. Something just comes on and it says new next to it. Those are probably the ones focus on, because then you can see, okay, what's the situation with this? Is it worth kind of going deeper? Ones have been sitting around. If it is a good deal, there are people in a lot of markets, that are looking. They're just sitting there looking for that deal to come across. They're not sending letters. They're not sending texts. Their strategy is just look for something that pops up and just be aggressive in going for it. So yeah. And again, if it's bigger than someone could take down on their own, bring in a partner to do it. But yeah, those new properties are the ones I think to focus on, that you've got a chance of grabbing it before somebody else does. But it's not going to be a situation usually where you're going to get it, hey, I want to do a 6-month close and I want to take my time and no, on the MLS, that's not going to happen. It's usually got to be cash. It's even saying to them, you want to go get a bank loan. People have learned that's an iffy thing. And for the folks out there, everybody's credit might be great. Everybody knows they can get a bank loan. Income's great, all these things. The seller of the property doesn't want to hear that. They want to know, am I 100% going to get, to closing and make this transaction? So yeah, the offering the cash, that's where having a partner lined up if you don't have the funds yourself to get it done. And if you can offer a bigger down payment than standard, on one we offered, I don't know, $40,000 deposit, escrow deposit, just to do something different than we thought the competition was going to do.
Excellent. Very good. And so, you mentioned earlier the role that agents sometimes play in your acquisition process, especially trying to figure out the valuation of a piece of property or valuation of an area. And you mentioned that it can sometimes be, there's a trick to it. How do you go about addressing agents and approaching agents and talking and having that kind of conversation with them?
So, yeah, a great question. If you find a property in the MLS, I'd also say go directly to the listing agent. Why? They're going to make twice the commission if you go through them to buy the property. And so they're going to have an incentive to work with you. And that way they don't, you have to pay another agent. And then as long as you're having a good rapport with them, they're going to want to get the highest price possible. But, if they think you're a solid buyer and not just, going to spin their wheels, they'll work with you. And those agents, then you could ask sometimes, hey, what do you think this would be worth if this were 10 acres in this area? And, see what they tell you. And a lot of times they will. And if you also let them know or even hint to them strongly that you'll need someone to help on the disposition side, if you're going to use an agent for dispositions, they'll also be happy to help, knowing they'll get more on the back end. And so if you're just calling a new agent and if you just say, oh yeah, hey, I'm buying this property over here, I've had agents say, well, I really feel like before I go too much into it, I've got to help you be able to buy the property. Well, I don't need help buying properties. I bought plenty of properties. I don't need help doing it. But he was basically saying, nah, not going to go there because he wasn't part of the deal. And he didn't, maybe he's been scammed or not scammed. Maybe he's been used for price checking just too often. And so he just decided he's not going to do that. So whatever it was. Yeah. So you do got to be careful. Not every agent is going to automatically say, oh yeah, this area, 3,500 acre, and give you all the information. They also get calls from people that it goes nowhere. And so they don't like that. So you got to be careful about that.
Excellent. Very good. So what are your favorite podcasts? Who do you like to follow? Business owners, land flippers, entrepreneurs, influencers. Who do you like to follow in the business space?
And I assume you mean after OnlyLandFans podcast.
Yes. In addition.
Right. So all those second place guys, yeah. Seth Williams has a good one. There's a whole bunch. I listen to so many of the Land Academy podcasts. Pete Reese has a podcast. There's just a lot out there if you start looking for them. And so I listen to a little bit of everybody's. Jesse from Pebble's got a nice podcast. I'm sure I'm forgetting some that I listen to all the time, but there's so much information. And if somebody's got any time, whether they're going for a walk or a bike ride or driving home from a corporate gig, if you could just learn just a few more tidbits, sometimes that can make a nice impact to the business. So, yeah.
Are there any sales teachers that you like that may not necessarily be in the land space, but someone that you really like to follow and adapt for what we do?
As far as business, I've been listening to a lot of Dan Sullivan. That's more business than sales, but sales, there's again, so many of them out there. It could be like a Brian Tracy. It could be, you can learn things from a lot of folks, even listening to what Grant Cardone says. His personality is so different than mine. I'm not going to be Grant Cardone, nor do I want to be, but he's got his own style. And for him, hey, it works. I try and be, when I talk to somebody, I try and be more consultative. If somebody starts asking me questions, first I'll try and learn more about them. Not that I'm trying to not to answer the question, but hey, what is your budget for land? And if somebody says, I don't know, okay, that's usually not good because they haven't thought enough about what they're actually going to buy, what they're going to do, but if they say, oh yeah, my budget's $50,000 or, well, I've got 10,000, I need to buy a property and owner financing. I'm like, great. We've got properties at 10,000 down. under 1,000 a month. We can do our financing. Tell me more about what you're looking for. You're looking for a home. You're looking for an investment. You're looking for, so try and be consultative and ask the questions and listen, and then figure out, are they going to be a match? And if they say, I'm looking for a property with utilities, it's got a well, it's got this, it's got that, and they're asking for a long list of things on properties I know I don't have. If I can point in the right direction, oh yeah, maybe just go on realtor.com and look in this area and put in these search features and maybe you can find it. I don't have it. Here are the properties we specialize in. I'll give my website, petersellland.com. Hey, go take a look, see if anything, looks interesting to you. I've had people find one property and we start talking about it. And then they call me back a day or two later. Hey, I saw this other property on your website, completely different type of property. But whatever reason, all of a sudden that resonated with them. Hey, I'm happy to sell them that one if they don't want the first one. So having more properties can be a good thing because they need more opportunities for sales. But yeah, the first thing is listen. Now, some people, and I get it, don't enjoy sales, don't like it. I talked to somebody today. I talk to people all the time in the business that it is not their thing. They would rather focus on acquisitions. And that's great from my perspective. Because hey, if we can do a JV deal and I do everything almost turnkey, if somebody finds a property that we can work on together, great. And that way they don't have to feel like they've got to study the sales stuff that they don't even like sales. Just like maybe I don't want to spend 10 hours of my day looking at a spreadsheet. But for some people, they love the challenge of trying to make that data look a certain way and trying to, and for them, maybe it's writing code to try and figure out the optimal way to approach a list or the marketing. And I think with AI, that's a whole different conversation. I think somebody who's got coding in their background is going to have an advantage there. But I also think, hey, we're still in a people world, and to sell it, it's not going to be sold by AI anytime soon. It's going to be still people. So I still have a job. So that's good. But it's figure out what is your number one thing that you think you're really good at to make the business work, and then bring on people or partner with people that you feel like it's a slog. You feel like it's not something you want to do. It's like, for some people, it's doing their taxes. I'm one of those people. I'm an accountant, so all I got to do is put the stuff together. But still, I don't know how they do it. That's just not, because I'm in sales, right? So
Sure.
Somebody who's accounting can focus on that stuff. That's a different world.
Yeah, it takes a special person. That's for sure.
Right.
So what would you consider to be your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
Right now, it is my business. I mean, I continue to grow it. It's when I think about, I don't really have nightmares, but if I have a bad dream, I wake up and I'm wearing a suit and I'm late for a meeting in corporate America. And I'm like, when I wake up, I'm like, woof. Thank goodness. And so, it is, I could say, hey, it would have been great to do it at a younger age, but I'd also say, hey, I had a lot of experience and a lot of things that helped me when I got to the land business, a million things, the sales side of it, but working with Excel spreadsheets, figuring out marketing stuff. There's a lot that helped me get off to a fast start. That, some people come to the land business and they haven't done anything with Excel because that's not what they had done before. So to even learn that, because I think, hey, that is an important skill set, unless you've got a partner that loves to do that. And then maybe you can get away with not having to know Excel. But to think about data. So you've got these things that are great for an engineer or great for a software developer or great for different kinds of people and their background. But you don't have to know everything. If you're in the business, you have to know what you know and figure out that you're good at some things and focus on those things and bring in people for the rest. So we're at a very fortunate time just with technology and, having virtual assistants, be possible. And, then also AI is going to help the land business or help shorten the time frame of sometimes what you do, writing, ads or blog posts or different things. And that's only what I know because I'm not a developer, but I think some people are going to figure out, how to really use it for marketing in a great way.
Absolutely. No, that's very true. I think we're about to see some very exciting things happen in the land space, really across the board with AI. So, I just want to thank you so much for giving to us today. How can we give back to you right now? What resources or connections are you looking to make right now?
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah, so folks that are looking to go a little bit bigger, folks that haven't done any splitting before, they'd like to partner up with somebody. I am happy if they submit a property, we could take a look at it. I will say that part of the game is not just saying yes to any old property. So, if I say no, it's not really going to work, it's not because I don't want to do a deal with somebody. It's because I think it's a challenging property. But when you're just starting, you don't really know. So, yeah, I'm open to a lot of JV partnerships. It could be funding, it could be helping sell it, it could be a number of things. But yeah, happy to talk to anybody about any deals they happen to have.
Excellent. And you mentioned your websites before, but how would someone need to get in touch with you? How can they get in touch with you?
Great. So either go on teamlanddeals.com. You'll see my numbers there. You can reach me if you want to email me, peter@teamlanddeals.com. The selling website I have is petersellsland.com. And I only mention that so you can see the kind of marketing that we've done. And, it's not the most newfangled site in the world, but for our buyers, it seems to be just an easy, basic kind of thing that they give us good feedback on it. So if you click on a property, then you see the details and what we've done for marketing. But yeah, I'd say Peter at Team Land Deals if you want to shoot me an email or go on the website, check us out, and then our phone numbers are on there.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I want to thank you, Peter, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, be great. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Great job. Take care.
If you're interested in hearing from other seven-figure land flippers about how they've started and run their businesses, then join us at OnlyLandFans.com. Looking forward to seeing you there.